And welcome back. It's the Closers here as we roll along, and happy to have alongside right now Dr. Richard Mall, Missouri Orthopedic Institute. Don't forget their clinic on Saturday mornings over at MOI from 9 to 10 a.m. It is a free clinic. You just walk right on in, sit right down, and they'll take care of you. And it's a great place because you've had a couple of hours or so to kind of watch your student-athlete. And then if something's a little bit questionable, you want to get right on over there. As we've said many times on this show, when in doubt, check it out. So we'll talk about that a little bit more as we roll along. It seems like forever, or it's only been a couple of weeks since you wandered in through the door and got stuck talking about bendy things. This is a little bit different, though. Hydration, dehydration, and sport drinks. So, hydration. I mean, this has been a weird weather pattern where it was nice and cool and temperate last week, and then you can move that microphone right on up there to you. And then this week, hot, humid, bright sunshine. Which is more dangerous, the hot, humid, bright sunshine, or those temperatures that were like we had last week, which are mid-80s? It feels really comfortable, but you still have to be hydrated.
Well, I think you should be vigilant no matter what you feel. But certainly the hot, humid days, I think coaching staff need to be very vigilant. Plan out adequate time to allow the athletes to rehydrate. A lot of water breaks. So I think you have to put a lot of thought in it when you know the weather, especially the humidity index and the heat index goes about a certain level. But I think hydration, just in general, because it's linked to performance, you should think about it, whether or not it's a hot day or not a great day. So I think what the weather is like outside, if you're a competitive athlete and you want to perform well, you should hydrate.
Yeah, so like I know on Friday nights when I do my games and I watch, we've got midway through each quarter or more if they decide, but you've got the water breaks, the hydration breaks that are going on. Are those hydration breaks? Is it just straight water? What's in that?
Yeah, I think for the most part, if you look at what the NCAA suggests, I think water in general is a very good liquid to hydrate. When you start to have like longer bouts of like training, and you start to sweat a lot, and you start to lose electrolytes, that's where the sports drinks may have some help, especially with the sodium and replenishing some of those electrolytes.
Okay.
But I think in general, water is a good liquid to consume. The things that's not good are energy drinks or sodas. Those don't really count. Okay.
Okay. Make a note, everybody. Those don't actually count. Yeah, and you mentioned the salts and stuff, and like I've been out mowing on some of those hot days, and like a knucklehead, I'll wear a dark-colored shirt, and when the shirt dries, you can see all the salt rings, which is kind of gross, and congratulations, people, right during your dinner hour. No worries on this one. We'll come back to something good. But you talk about replacing the salts. For what period of time before you really need to be starting to worry about, okay, I got to get some kind of electrolyte, whether it's Propel or Powerade, Gatorade, whatever?
Yeah, I think the number that I remember is if you have intense activity greater than 60 minutes, then you need to start thinking about at least having a couple gulps of something that has some sort of electrolyte. So that's a general time frame that I have in my mind. For shorter workouts, I don't like I said, I think energy drinks may not be necessary. But for those longer exercises that goes beyond 60 minutes, then you're going to want to make sure that you consume some sort of electrolyte, especially sodium, to kind of replenish that what is lost in sweating.
Yeah, and this isn't just for the athlete. I mean, if you're working around the house,
absolutely,
cutting the lawn or whatever, and you're just sweating, that's a good thing.
That's right.
But B, you've got to stay hydrated in order to make sure that you're sweating, because that's the body's cooling system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think these things that we're talking about goes for everybody. It's not just athletes. Even though I'm a sports surgeon, I think these things are good things to just keep in mind whenever you're out and it's hot outside and you're going to be out there for a while.
Dr. Richard Mall, Missouri Orthopedic Institute, with us here. Don't forget about their clinic on Saturday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. And that's, again, it's a free walk-in clinic over at MOI, and they can also provide referrals. Sports drinks. It's a huge advertising battle. Gatorade, originally down with the Florida Gators, which is how it got its name. Then you have Powerade getting out there, the Pepsi product. And then you've got Propel, which is the flavored water and electrolytes. Any preference? Is there, one better than the other depending on what you're doing? And I don't care that Missouri is a whatever school, whether it's it's a Coke school, but whatever. How do you rate those performances?
Well, I think it's. I'm sure if you ask those individual companies, they're going to have.
Well,
they're going to feel very strongly about what their product is. But I don't particularly think, at least in my opinion, like one is necessarily better than the other. I think for an athlete or for anybody consuming these things, I think it behooves you to know what you're consuming and how much calories are actually in these things. And they're helpful, like if you're going to be expending a lot of energy and you need to replenish carbohydrates. But I don't know if necessarily one is necessarily better than the other. I don't know if there's really good science that tells you that.
What about the type of sugar that's that's in there? Because like I've got the label here for Powerade, and in there high fructose corn syrup, and then all the salts, natural flavors and such. And then you go to the Gatorade, and I got my trusty Gatorade bottle with the really teeny tiny print, but it also has a sugar component to it.
Yeah, and I think those give you some of that carbohydrate that you may need if you are trying to replenish those carbohydrates that you need, because carbohydrates really for the short-term energy source for your body when you're really exercising. And so I think those things are good, but I don't know. Sometimes if you're working out to try to burn calories and you're putting in those calories, I'm not sure if you're really achieving your goals in those instances.
Which is where Propel has created its niche.
That's right.
We're flavored energy or flavored water for rehydration, including the electrolytes. Yeah, because Powerade, 130 calories per serving, and the tiny little bottle of Gatorade here, that's the fruit punch. It had its 80 calories per one bottle serving, and that serving is 12 ounces. What if you're working out? How much should you be consuming as far as a liquid for hydration?
Well, I think usually a good number to just kind of think about is maybe 4 ounces every 15 to 25 minutes. Okay, so that's a couple gulps if you're working really strenuously. But I think the hydration and consuming liquids goes beyond just when the time of exercise is happening. It's important you do it pre-game. And then definitely post-game. And there's some scientific things, like if you're a guy that loves to kind of weigh yourself after, before starting intense exercise and then weigh yourself after exercise. They usually say 16 ounces, which is a water bottle for every pound that you may have lost in sweat. So that's a good number to kind of remember.
Okay, yeah, because I know on my mowers I've got 2 water bottles, depending on how long I'm going to be out there, and I try to make sure I've got one going down at least every 45 minutes or so, especially on a day like this, because I'm the only shade I'm providing myself. So, with that, and I don't get like my daytime gig is out mowing, and other people are doing yard work and all that. 1, 2, 3 days ahead of time, how far do you want to start making sure that you're going to be good to go? Because the athlete's familiar with it,
right?
But the weekend warrior, and sometimes it's a war against your house, but sometimes that weekend warrior doesn't necessarily always understand how many days you should get started.
Well, I think in general, a lot of times you could kind of tell how your body is doing hydration-wise just by looking at the color of your urine, and you can certainly go to the NCAA and download their urine color chart and get an idea how well hydrated you are. I don't know if there's a specific time frame that you need to start doing. They certainly recommend 2 to 3 hours before you're going to do something that you start. You consume at least 16 ounces of water so that to get ready for whatever competition that you're doing. But I know for some of my athletes, they're looking at their urine color when they go to the bathroom to try to figure out, am I well hydrated or am I underhydrated? And then they're going to try to make some adjustments based on what they see.
Okay, you brought up the color part.
That's right.
Clear.
Well, you want, I tell people lemonade.
Lemonade.
Lemonade, yeah.
Okay. So just a little tinge of the yellow in there.
That's right, and that'd be fine.
Crystals are bad. you're just a smidge underhydrated if you're doing crystals.
That's right.
So, okay. But it's incredibly important. I think some of the side effects of dehydration, because I've noticed some days it's like, man, I don't have enough water to drink, and I'll have just a little bit of a headache.
Yeah.
What are some of the other symptoms that you have that you're beginning to be dehydrated?
I mean, similar, hopefully earlier symptoms are things like muscle cramps. So that's for sure. But as you get more dehydrated and go into the realm of like heat illness.
Okay.
You start to get confusion, you start to get nausea, you start to get a little lethargic. To some things that are more catastrophic, meaning bad things where people pass out, seizures. So I think recognizing it early, recognizing that you've been out for a while, working out for a while, you're sweating a lot. Have that back in your mind before you have these symptoms are probably the best thing, rather than to wait for the onset of symptoms.
Dr. Richard Ma with us here on the closers. All right, so water's the basic one, always a good go-to. Sports drinks, if you've been working out really strenuously and you're expending a lot of calories.
Yep.
I've heard and I've seen some where they go, well, you should mix it half and half. You should never drink the Gatorade or the Powerade or whatever straight. You should mix it half and half with water. Does that make any sense?
I don't know if there's science behind it.
Okay.
If there is, I haven't come across that science. But I think maybe that's just to try to cut down on the calories and the carbohydrates. I'm sure there are other personal little rules that people have for it, but I haven't heard of that one.
All right, Dr. Richard Ma, again, that Missouri Orthopedic Institute clinic is on Saturday mornings from 9 to 10 a.m. over at MOI, and it's fully staffed, and they provide referrals if needed. And you mentioned off air on the way in, there's been some pretty serious injuries so far already this football season on the high school level.
Absolutely, we've. It's been good for us, the Saturday injury clinic. We've had 3 kids that have had fairly significant knee injuries, 2 of which we've already operated. We kind of help facilitate getting them taken care of surgically, so they're on their way to recovery. So this has been good for us. We're able to capture these kids and hopefully spare them a trip to the emergency room, and then get them in front of a specialist that can make decisions, get the test needed, and then get them taken care of if they need something like a surgery.
Are parents, coaches getting better at recognizing concussions and making sure that the appropriate actions are taken?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, and a lot of it is thanks to people like you and the media. I mean, I think it's on the forefront of our consciousness now, especially with kids. So I certainly have people that bring their kids in that may have just taken a blow and have very mild symptoms and they're not sure. And that's what we would prefer, for you to be cautious rather than don't think something much of it. And I think, so absolutely, I think coaches, parents, even the athletes themselves, I think they're definitely a lot more vigilant because the awareness is out there that this is something that we need to pay attention to.
Yeah, when Brett was in last week and we talked about the myth of concussion-proof helmets, he talked about the stigma. From what you're seeing with the just with the athlete, is that stigma going far enough away that they feel much freer to go, you know what, I'm not feeling quite right here, Coach?
Yeah, I think they recognize that this is not something that they should play with. The concept of just having your bell rung, they realize that's probably not just a bell rung, that this may be a mild concussion, and so they're more willing to be verbalize this to somebody on the sideline, whether it be the athletic trainer, who then does the right thing, sit the kid out and have them evaluated. And so I think, yes, the kids are definitely a lot more vigilant, and they're a lot more vocal, which is a good thing.
All right, Dr. Richard Ma, Missouri Orthopedic Institute. Again, check out that free clinic on Saturday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. It's all every Saturday morning during the football season. And the adage is, when in doubt, check it out. Don't wait, because the more you wait, the worse things can sometimes get. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
Thank you again for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. It's always a good sight when you walk in through the door, and I'm like, all right, cool. I don't have to handle the medical stuff by myself, and I'm feeling really good about that one. So, again, I appreciate it. Hope you have a quiet weekend out there on the football field.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. You're very welcome.
You can join the conversation anytime. Call 442-8255. The Closers on KFRU and KLIK.